In modern application development, typically applications are going to be distributed across a number of servers, often broken up into services or microservices, and you really want the maximum flexibility in how you deploy those. And we'll certainly talk about that at the platform level, but you have the ability to do that at the infrastructure as a service level as well, at your VM level. And between the ability to fairly easily create virtual machines, and I think more importantly, to be able to easily create and configure virtual networks, Azure provides what, to me at least, is pretty much a perfect environment for spinning up complex Windows-based workloads. And so you have some things that are fairly straightforward. You have the ability, obviously, to create web applications within the Azure environment, and that may be split across multiple tiers, right? You may create web servers and you may create SQL servers. You may even have state servers. You may have other services that are available or need to be available, and you may want to separate those out into different virtual machines and have those communicate and have them communicate easily and natively. And that's going to be something that is very easy to do within the Azure environment. And as someone who's much more of a developer than an administrator, I have to say, I don't want to have to do that on premise because I just find it so easy to set this up in the Azure environment. There's a lot of overhead, and not just overhead in terms of process, but overhead in terms of configuration that I don't have to do. I can create a virtual machine. I can create my virtual network first and then create several virtual machines in that virtual network with very little effort on my part. And I'm always big on anything that involves very little effort. Well, in addition to that, you also have other complex workloads. And again, I'm a bit of a SharePoint person. If you've ever set up SharePoint, SharePoint really requires at a minimum 2, really 3 servers. If you were setting up a complete SharePoint environment, you'd have to have your domain environment with a domain server, you'd have to have a SQL server, and at least 1 SharePoint machine. And that can become a fairly complex environment, right? Well, the great thing is I can set that up easily in the Azure environment. In fact, I do that, and that was one of the things to me that was great when I got to use Azure infrastructure, is that I'm able to set up a test environment for SharePoint in ways I simply never could. I cannot afford to install the kind of hardware that's needed to run a SharePoint environment in my own environment. I haven't been able to convince my wife to let me spend that money. But in Azure, I can do that, and I spin it up, and I only use it when I need it, and I only get charged for it when I use it, which is fantastic. So it is a great tool for architecting complex architectures. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I can go and I can set that up within minutes in an Azure environment and see how things are working in networking, even if I'm going to end up hosting it on premise. It's a great environment for doing that. I know I sound a little bit like a salesperson here, but for me, this was just absolutely game-changing, there, sounding more like a salesperson, when I was able to do that, when I was able to have this unbelievable compute infrastructure available to me so that I could build my workloads, test things out, and again, not have to worry about having that hardware, configuring that hardware in an on-premise environment.